I only did this motion because I noticed I was on mute. So, hello.
Ho, ho, ho. Welcome.
Yeah, that too. Welcome back, everyone, to another session of Adobe Live here on Behance on a wonderful Friday. Where it is still snowing outside where I am. I don't know about you, Joe. Is it also? What's the weather like in London?
Oh, it's brighter today. That's good. It's been, honestly, a very dark week.
Surprise. So, that's London for you.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be happier and brighter for the weekend. So I will take that.
The weather forecast in London. It's grey.
Yes.
Thanks. Right. And of course, we are not alone today because we are joined by the wonderful audience who's always there in the chat. So let me extend a personal and warm welcome to everyone who is joining us on Behance, because if you're watching this anywhere but on Behance, you are missing out, because the live chat is on be.net/Adobe Live. Once again, that's be.net/Adobe Live. Join us there, say hi. And if this is your first time joining us, then let us know where you are joining us from. Always great to hear from you when we never have heard of you before. Great sentence. Thanks. And in the chat joining us today let me see. There it is. We have Tony. Oh, who's that? Tony. Crazy guy. We have Paraham. Sorry. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. I'm very apologize. We have Oliver. We have Michelle. We have Linda. We have Jackie and General Kenobi. Hello there. We have Bodo, we have Andreas, who is also, by the way, always joining the German streams. So if you happen to speak German, check that one out. And he's joining us from a certain point of view. Thanks.
Right.
Good to know. And they're all saying hello, and photography, yeah. And hi, Joe and Tim, hello. Can you see my works? I just started. Today, we're not reviewing portfolios, but we do have a challenge. So you can definitely show off your work in there. If you haven't heard of the Festive challenge, I will just quickly show you a slide that shows you all the details you have to know to participate. So we're looking for your Festive story, and you can share your design, which can be all sorts of different design disciplines like illustration, photography, videography, or animation, or even a Spark website, perhaps an InDesign document. Doesn't matter. You just have to submit it by December 15th, that's Wednesday next week, to our Discord. The link is in the video description or in the Festive Challenge tab on Behance. And with a bit of luck, you could win a 1-year subscription to the Creative Cloud and this fantastic Stream Team hoodie designed by Karina Lindmeier. And it's warm, it's fuzzy, and I would wear it if it isn't very warm in the studio because of the lights.
It's got a very premium feel to it, that hoodie. It's a good quality.
Anyway, that's all for the one last thing. If you already won in a previous challenge and you are still using a free subscription of the Creative Cloud, that is, if you actually won it, then unfortunately we can't give you another one, but you can still receive the Stream Team hoodie. So you can still participate, share your designs on Discord. We will talk about this at the end of the stream again. So with that, Joe, what is your Festive story? What would you like to share with us today?
So originally, this is maybe a little bit bittersweet because I was supposed to be in Germany hanging out with you and seeing everyone. So I was hoping when we planned this stream that I would have got to visit some like German markets and experience the snow that you're having right now. Because traditionally, I don't really do a huge amount of Christmassy festive things myself. However, I do enjoy wandering around London in the winter, in the cold. This side of the new year is, I find, the best time to be out exploring and chasing some of the lights and everything. So all the different window shopping and all the window dressing, that's the term, that stores do for Christmas. And the fact that it's cold and it's dark, it means that it gets dark by about 4 o'clock, pretty much, like completely pitch black. And so that's when people finish work. That's when people go out to eat, and it's busy, but it feels like nighttime. Yeah, everything's active. It's like this really good mix of all sorts of things. So I guess my festive story is...
Only you had a hoodie to keep you warm while you're outside.
Cold nights chasing the lights. And yes, I should have worn my hoodie. So yeah, I have some images here that I took just a couple of days ago. So I spent the night in Soho. So if you don't believe me, there I am. That was me chasing some mirrors and all sorts. And I essentially just went around taking all sorts of images. So mostly around, this is like the Carnaby Street area, and they've got all sorts of displays up and things. But this is what I'm talking about when I say it's cold and wintry and warm inside. So when you go to restaurants, you get all this condensation. You've got, sweaty rooms. This is actually a ramen shop. And I just was chasing reflections and all sorts. Soho is kind of synonymous for neon and argon lights. So there's plenty of them around. And I really enjoyed it. So what I'm going to share today is editing some of these images. I've got a few that I felt had quite a sort of cinema vibe to them. So I'm going to edit in a particular style. I am also working on some new Lightroom presets. I've got a new collection that I've been doing, and I'm going to add to that with the edits that I work on today, and then I'll tweak them and fine-tune them a little bit. So yeah, these are the sort of raw images to start with, and we'll see if we can spruce them up and put them into something. And then at the end, if we got time, and now that I'm saying it, I'm going to have to make time, I'm going to piece them together into a little bit of a postcard type thing on Photoshop. And we can see a collection of maybe 4 images in a little bit of an evening tale of festive Soho. It's actually just winter, dark and lights.
And for once, without just excessive amounts of snow, which is just different.
Yes.
That winter doesn't mean snow. Has to be a major
That's very
part
true.
of the
It's very true. I did find it hilarious when... my first Christmas I had in Australia, all of the Christmas cards, everything covered in snow. And of course, it's the height of summer in Australia in December. So I did find that hilarious. Anyway, let's start with this image because this one has been on my mind a lot since I've taken it. So we've obviously got the neon sign behind and the condensation running through. So I've got 2 versions of this image. We've got one that focuses on the sign behind, and then we got the one of the window. So I'm going to start with this one, and then I'm just going to copy the edits across and see how they look between the 2. So I've got a considerable number of presets that I'm working on at the moment, and these are giving all sorts of vibes, but we are going to start from scratch with this one. So first of all, I'm going to bring down the exposure.
Those are your custom presets that you made, right?
Yes, they are indeed.
And they are available to download somewhere?
Not yet. I have other ones, but these ones I've been working on, believe it or not, for about 2 years or so. And I will eventually be releasing them this month, coming very close to doing that. But they're all designed for stone-based architecture and cities. So, of course, London is very stone-heavy. And there's a lot of edits in there that fit the vibe of how London feels, especially some of the darker ones that I've got. So I'm just going to play around a little bit with shadows and highlights just to balance what I'm looking for. The thing I noticed with this, with the condensation, it makes it very sharp. So I'm actually going to bring back some of the clarity to start with, just because I find that it sort of pops the highlights a little too much. And before we go any further, I'm going to correct the uprights. Let's see if it works out the auto. Little bit. Let's go and fix some of these.
And Jackie says, love the Christmas lights. I miss going to London in December. Yeah. I really have to find out if Munich also has some spots like similar to this. I don't think they have, but maybe, who knows? This sounds like just an adventure waiting to happen. So sorry.
So one of the plans for the trip, we were supposed to be going to Berlin, and Berlin I've always thought of being like a street photography haven.
Yeah.
Does Berlin have an area with like a lot of neon?
Probably. I mean, it's Berlin. It has everything.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah.
But I haven't personally seen it. I mean, the few times I've been to Berlin was for the meetup with the hosts, and sometimes just traveling through and visiting some relatives, but that's about it. I haven't been to Berlin at night, but it's supposed to be very nice.
Yeah, I will get there one day, and hopefully in the winter, because I think Berlin is a winter city. It's obviously very cold, but you know, we've got coats. We're brave.
And hoodies, mostly Stream Team hoodies.
Yes.
And
okay, so I'm just gonna do a tone curve now. Yep, carry on.
I just wanted to say, if for the folks watching at home, if you have any questions around the process or anything that Joe's doing at the moment, just let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them, hopefully. So put them into the chat while Joe's working on that. Okay, so you are going into the tone curve. Why the tone curve? What are the edits you're looking for at the moment?
So the tone curve, I find, is where most of the magic happens, in all honesty. So I started off with just my highlights and shadows. So I've dropped down just a little bit south of the midtones, just darkened those down. So if you see around here, you see what that's doing around the sort of outer bit of the glow. So not quite to the edges. We've got a natural vignette happening here. It's just kind of bringing them down a little bit, bringing the focus in. If I raise them up, well, that's actually just burnt it. But if we raise them up, it's just a bit glowy, and it focuses too much on the condensation. So I'm trying to find the balance with that. And I usually go back and forth tweaking things. So I think I liked it down, but then I did like the highlights up a little bit. And I've just clipped the highlights down so we don't actually get some of those super bright water droplets that were making it look a bit over sharp. So I've just brought the white point down just a few clicks. And then going into my color curves. So again, we've got sort of the mid values here. You can make those more red, make them more blue. I'm liking the idea of bringing the shadows to a more red area, or more like the shadow mid-tone area. And I would definitely bring the blues, the shadows up. So I could even take the very darkest point and bring those up and see what it's doing to the bottom. It's like really introducing this blue into the shadow area. So you could go a little bit overboard with this.
Okay. Which is, of course, a nice contrast color on the color wheel compared to the very warm highlights. And I see that technique a lot. Also, like in teal and orange movie posters, which is not, which I don't mean that this is not just a teal and orange classic look, but it has something similar to that. And honestly, I lack the confidence to add that many points to the tone curve. More than 2, I get very nervous. So one day I will be like you and add like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to that curve.
I think as long as you keep a natural sort of smoothness to it, the number of points I think is manageable. If you see, if I break it, like if I do, go a bit too far, you see the effects it has is actually this camera's holding up.
It sort of works.
Well. But yeah, you see the effects happening a little bit too drastically. And like I said, I always go back and I tweak them. So I'm actually bringing this point up a little bit just to bring out some of the brightness again. Cool. So we can toggle that on and off. We can see what it's doing. So it's just introduced a little bit more blue into the shadow area. And yeah, just softened some of the harsh highlights that we had. Then we go into our hue, saturation, and luminance. So I'm just going to select points onto here. So I'm probably not going to adjust too much with the color here, but I do want to make this yellow sign just a little bit more orangey. And I'm going to introduce a little bit more saturation on the blues. There isn't really any green to the image, but there will be a little bit in the pixels down here. Mm-hmm. And luminance-wise, you'll see this will probably be more noticeable on the other image, but you could really bring up the neon light, or you could really bring it down. Again, that's going way too far. So I'm just going to bring it up.
It's perfect. It's just all the way. That's why the sliders have maximum limits, because you have to crank them all the way up to 11. And Oliver's also saying, go wild, Tim, add all the points, see what happens. No, no. But I would be interested in how many of you have messed around or played around with the tone curves in Lightroom. So let us know in the chat if you have ever used the tone curve, or if you're a newbie like me, if you lack confidence, or if you add all the points. I really want to know. Okay, now we are into the
now we're into the color grading.
Yes.
So this is again pretty much all the tools. They do the same thing, but ever so slightly differently. And so you're always like tweaking a little bit. So I'm now just adjusting some sort of color cast to apply to the shadows and the highlights and the midtones. So I've just introduced a little bit more blue. So you choose the point on the wheel, and you see if I go all the way, you can have loads of blue into the image. I don't want to go too much, but just enough. And likewise, introducing a little bit of orange. I'm trying to just match it to this sign, so we're just accentuating it a little bit. In terms of the midpoint, I'm going to leave that white. I'm not going to introduce anything there, but you'll see that if I did something, we'd affect more around the water droplets. But I'm going to reset that. And do I want to blend it? I don't think so. I think I'm happy with it as it is. I could maybe balance it a little bit more shadow way. Okay. Sharpening wise, it's kind of okay. Again, don't want to over sharpen because of those droplets. We've already applied our transformation, and again, could do a little bit of a grain just because I like that sort of nostalgic vibe. Cold winter. I don't know. Winter always feels like it was an old time. I don't know why. It comes around every year, but it always feels like it's a really traditional old time.
Well, everyone, including the German railway service, is always surprised that it is cold and snows in the winter. It's just like it never happened before. And we have an answer. Oliver has indeed made some presets for himself with some different curves in it. Nowhere near as many as Joe, though. And yes, he has played around with the tone curve, which is, I think I have to do that too. Is that also part of Lightroom CC, the tone curve?
Yeah, it should be there. I'm pretty sure
use it on my
it's
tablet.
exactly the same module. So yeah, you can use it. It replaces what used to be the split toning, which Tim, you probably know the update more than me. Was maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. Was it Max 2020?
1 year ago, I think. Sounds about right. Yeah, I think so. I'm not that knowledgeable when it comes to Lightroom updates, but 1 year ago sounds about right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So that is one little edit here with this particular image. And so I'm just going to create a preset from this. And this is definitely a work in progress. So we're going to call it a whip. And let's call this, what should we call this? Let's just call this Stream 1.
Stream
just
1.
For now.
By the way, hi Nitin, welcome to the chat. I have a question for you. Do you notice like this preset what you just made? How can I ask this question? Like, can you reuse it a lot? It seems like an oddly specific preset. Do you find you can use it on many other images other than this one?
Yeah. So this is where the process takes 2 years, I find.
Oh, I see.
Because I will create them like this. It will be a work in progress, and I will then go back through a back catalog of testing them on all sorts of different images and sort of tweaking them and fine tuning. Eventually, you find a balance where it adds enough style that can be used across a number of images, but not too much style that it actually requires a very specific image.
Yeah, right. Because the presets, if you just create a preset, like mess all the sliders, put them all, crank them to the max, it may look great on this one image, but as soon as you try to use it on another one, it doesn't look that great. So now I can understand why it can take more than just 10 minutes to create your own preset. That actually works.
And in fact,
other images too.
I was calling it Stream because I couldn't remember what I was wanting to call it, but ideally I want to give it a name that alludes to why you would use that particular preset. So Dark Lights, I think, is a good name for this one, but it's still a work in progress. So I leave that as a note to myself.
You're so
and there
organized.
It is, just at the bottom. But I mean, likewise, if we look at some of the others that I've created, they do still work for this image. They're not necessarily designed for this image, but just shows it doesn't go too far in the styling. And so if we now go back to the previous one, in fact, the first thing I forgot to do that I always do is create a virtual copy. So I always do my edits on a virtual copy. But now if we apply that preset straight away, we've got the same color, tones and everything as the previous one, minus the transformation. So I never include the transformation, the crop, or any sort of masking and other things. I always keep those off.
This is such an interesting look. It almost looks like, you have edited the text on top of the
It does, doesn't it?
It's so weird. But it's in camera, this one. This is actually was shot in camera. So no edits. Mm-hmm. Crazy.
So let's just apply a little crop because I was being a bit quick taking this image and I didn't quite center it. So let's do that. And I kind of like it balanced a little bit above halfway, actually. Cool. In fact, I got those almost perfectly together with those crops.
Nice.
And likewise, I can also copy those settings. So I do this quite a lot when I'm editing. I'll maybe start with one reference image. I'll copy a lot of my settings and then I'll paste them across. When I'm copying settings, because they're with the same camera, I do include the sharpening. And sometimes the lens correction. However, Lightroom doesn't actually recognize the Fuji X-T4. So it doesn't have any lens profiles, unfortunately. But if I was shooting on my Canon, then yeah, I would do that because then it would apply the automatic calibration for the lens. So paste these in. In fact, did I have the crop? I did have that enabled by accident. Oops. Let's reset the crop back. So I do kind of like that purpley light. I'll take out that one at the top. Cool. So I'm happy with that. That's bringing in nice tones. Also, not afraid to lose some of the detail in the shadow here. I think that's something you should be okay with. Don't go too wild on it, but generally you have your own personal taste. Let's find.
Do you ever add, or can you even add local adjustments to presets?
You can, but that makes it very specific. So if I was to add, say, like a linear gradient, which I have done a lot in the past, I would add a linear gradient from the bottom up. And what I found it did on a lot of images is it really sort of drew your attention into the center. So for like street landscapes and things, you could we could do anything really, but I would just darken the shadows just ever so slightly and also soften the shadows so they weren't as harsh. I'd bring the contrast back, and that worked really well for street images. However, if you apply that same preset on a vertical image, it then puts that gradient on the side because it rotates the preset with it. So that's a bit of a problem, and yeah, it just doesn't always work.
So my dramatic sky presets, my plans are foiled. I can't do that. I wonder if, probably not, but if you say select subject, if it would select the subject of the new image if you apply that preset. But I'm probably sure it would just apply the mask of that.
Yeah, so this is, I'll show you what it does actually. So this particular image, if we go select subject, hopefully it will find the dude. There it is. And if we then apply just some little bits just for the demonstration, let's just brighten them up a little bit. And
new feature in Lightroom, by the way. If you don't see that feature, make sure to update.
It has honestly been a massive feature. This whole masking selection thing, vastly improved. Very much enjoying it. Yeah, it's working wonders. So we've selected this person and made our adjustments. And now if I was to create a preset from this, you'll see that we've got an attention on the masking. And in fact, rather than create a preset, I'll just do it as a copy. And now if we go to another image and make our adjustment, you will see that this then comes across, but we just need to update it. So how do we update that? Update here. So we have a big update button. And what that will do is it will then just go and detect the subject again. In this case, the image doesn't really have a person subject bright enough. It has sort of found it along with the rest.
There you go.
Interesting. That surprised me. But yeah, that's how it works. So you can copy it across, but you will then have to manually go through and update every time you paste them in. So,
but that's still pretty good.
Up to you. Yeah, it's workable, definitely.
And of course, I mean, it makes sense. I don't want Lightroom to make any automatic adjustments that I'm not okay with. So an update to the mask sounds like the perfect solution for that. Anyway,
okay, let's
Tony Hammer
find
is also
another
saying,
image.
Tony's saying it's so good, the masking feature. I agree.
It's really, really good. Okay, here's a couple of images. I'm going to start with this one, just because when I took this image, I saw it as a bit of a narrow crop, which is what gave me the idea of how we can paste these into a little Photoshop thing afterwards. So again, let's just whiz through, and I'm going to try and do this as a pretty rapid edit, and I will go through kind of at the pace that I would usually do. And we'll see how we can piece this together. So.
Ooh, and Sandrine is just joining. Sorry, I'm late. Hashtag work lurking. We're lurking. We're lurking today. Mostly listening, which is a shame for a stream on photography. And that's right. Well, fear not, for we have replays. Replays. Okay.
Very nice. I've been wanting to get a hardware reverb switch.
It's so good.
Is yours a hardware one?
Yeah, of course. It's
nice.
I have like a mixer which I plug my microphone in, and it just has an effects section which you can use for dramatic effect in a meeting. Like, I want a promotion now. Always works. That's amazing. How I make 500K per month.
Yeah, I mean that is the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
And And you can still save on
Canadian,
a cheaper reverb.
That's 500k Canadian, so like €2. Just kidding. Right, so back to the topic. We are on a second image, and you're going into the secondary HSL adjustments.
Yeah, I'm doing this one fairly rapido. Just adding some tones and things. Again, I'm liking the idea. Not that. Liking the idea of bringing in some blues into the shadows. I think you'll see what I mean when I make this crop. So I did wonder, do I make the crop first, or do I do it after? Or do we do it midway through? I think maybe.
Are you asking me, or was this just a rhetorical question?
I think I'm asking myself.
Okay.
I think I'm bringing in rhetorical questions.
Sometimes you just have to talk to an expert.
Yeah. That reminds me, actually. What do you get when you cross a joke with a rhetorical question?
Oh, that's a good one. That's one of my favorite ones, actually, and I'm always deeply saddened that nobody's ever getting this joke, and then they ask the question, so what do you get? And like,
whoosh.
Whoosh, that's the joke going over the head. Oh, well.
Okay, so I'm going to reveal the crop later in Photoshop. No, I'm not. I'm playing with you. I'm gonna do it now. Let's go. Let's do a custom. So I'm gonna go for a 3:1.
Didn't say next on Adobe Live, how to increase your salary with dramatic sound effects. Yes.
So something like this is kind of what I was looking at when I took the image. And when we paste them into Photoshop, in fact, 3:1 could be a little bit too extreme. Let's go for a 2, or I could do the cinematic value.
Do you have some favorite aspect ratios that you tend to use a lot?
I use 2:1 a lot. I think it rounds out pretty nicely on a number of things. 2.35 or 2.39:1 is common for widescreen video, which is kind of the vibe that we're going for here. So I'm going to work with this crop, and then I'm actually going to release the crop, and I will fine tune it in Photoshop. So I'm just further convincing myself that I need to get into Photoshop in a moment.
I mean, you have about half an hour, so all the time.
It's all good. So there's another image, and let's work on this one. So this, I actually have to give credit to Ellie for spotting, because I was taking pictures of this pub from like a wider area, and then was almost ready to walk away. And then Ellie just pointed and was saying about the window, and she was like, "Get that." I was like, "Oh yeah," because just as I did it, this person turns their head and gave a perfect silhouette of their face. And I thought that was brilliant.
That is pretty cool.
So,
and Tony is saying,
straighten this up.
I think you can use that mixer model with MIDI to LR, which is MIDI to Lightroom, so you can work with Lightroom. I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's an analog mixer. But Tony's right. There are some digital ones that indeed can be used with some magic trickery to tweak the values of Lightroom. So you can actually physically modify the values using sliders and knobs on your mixer. And there's also, of course, the loop deck and others.
Yep.
Others like it. Have you ever tried that one?
I have the loop deck, yep. I enjoyed it for quite a long time until I rearranged my desk and ended up with using 2 different Macs, and it became quite a hassle switching between them. So I really need to sort out my situation of plugging and unplugging between them.
Well, that's easy. Get another one. 2 loop decks, 2 hands, double the productivity.
But it definitely is a fast way of editing.
Okay. So it gets the Joe Allam stamp of approval. Photo DJ,
Okay.
yes. Crank those highs.
Okay, so I'm toying with the idea. Do I accentuate the brightness in this image or do I bring in the shadows? I think I like the brightness, you know.
And I suppose there's no hard and fast rule for this. You just see what looks right to you.
Pretty much, yeah. So I did make a starting point with that preset we created earlier. And I've made quite a few adjustments. So that's already telling me that that preset will need to be tweaked considerably until it's fit for more scenes. Anyway, let's bring this like this.
DJ Allam and MC Mobest. There you go. Tony says, pump up the volume or exposure. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere playing with doing it for exposure instead of getting paid. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. Chat, tell me if you have one.
Okay. Right. I'm going to actually bring down the saturation just a little bit, just to reduce some of that cast. Crop in to even the frame.
I mean, that's interesting. You increase the vibrance, but decrease the saturation.
Yes.
Why?
So I do this a lot, actually. So saturation affects everything in your image, including skin tones. And I'm actually seeing this window as being a bit of a skin tone sort of color.
Ew.
And vibrance increases your saturation and a few other little things, but tries to preserve skin tones. And so in this instance, I wanted it to have a little bit of vibrancy. So we've got areas like the blues over here and other details. So pop those a little bit, but decrease some of the more skin-like tones.
That's clever.
Okay, let's save it on that one, and let's find another image.
Tone down the extremes and pump up the saturation in midtones. That's how I see it. Hashtag might be wrong. I mean, that's why we have the sat versus sat curve in Premiere, don't we? Right?
Yes. Yeah. So you've got all sorts of control and opportunities.
I edit my photos in Premiere. I mean, I guess you could edit your photos in Premiere since you have the Lumetri color panel, which is very similar to Lightroom 1. But don't do that. But if you do, submit it for the Festive Challenge.
Okay, so I'm going to start with one of these. And again, you can probably tell that I saw this as a widescreen crop, just across this sort of framing.
Already when you took the photo, or just when you were looking through the different shots?
When I took the photo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely how I was kind of imagining it. But I must admit, I didn't originally think of stacking them in a little postcard thing until last night. And so I thought, oh, that's an idea.
The best ideas often come to you just before you try to go to sleep. It's like, oh,
I really do. It's kind of annoying, to be honest.
There's actually a trick that a lot of the greatest minds in the world and history were using. They sit on a chair, have like their keys in the hand, and when they fall asleep, they of course the keys fall out of their hand and drop on something like, I don't know, something hard, which makes a lot of noise, and then they wake up immediately because they hear the noise, and then they go straight to work. And that's how they get this into this state between being awake and asleep, and that's apparently how a lot of people get their great ideas. I've never tried it because I feel like that's torture. Trying to go to sleep just to be awakened by a horrible noise of keys falling on the floor.
Yeah, that's
apparently it works.
I do have a like a strategy, I guess, sometimes of when I need to remember something, I really just stop and think of a particular thing. So, for example, I know that later today I'm going to be driving home for Christmas, and so I'm gonna need to remember to bring the right things that I'm bringing with me. So I will mentally tell myself, when I do a specific thing that is related to getting in the car, so I can't get in the car without my own keys, I will think of, right, car keys, that brings this. And so it's that, like, forcing yourself to just stop everything and just say, this moment requires this to happen. And it works really well. I often remember what it was I was remembering. I mean, to be fair, if I forgot, I wouldn't know. So
true. See, chat, you thought you were getting a Lightroom stream, and instead you got professional life advice. See, there you go. And we do have some comments. And Etienne is saying this one is right out of a Christmas movie, like the one we had before, that one you cropped. Oliver says, I've edited videos in Lightroom before. Interesting. Okay. And some people edit their videos in Photoshop. I did that too before I discovered Premiere.
Yeah.
No shame. Now she's using Rush, of course. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people are using Rush. You should definitely, everyone, keep your eyes on that, because some things are happening. That's all I can say. Right. And Michelle says, I really like that photo. I do too. It has so much color, something which you don't really expect from a winter photography shoot. I really like it.
Yeah, this particular one actually has also come out quite clean and crisp. So I'm actually just going to introduce a bit of grain, which I do find hilarious that, you know, we complain about wanting more from our cameras, yet we also want to bring back.
I have to say there's a difference between grain and noise, because often camera noise, it has color in it, and that just doesn't look great. But Lightroom noise, or grain, or whatever, which you can also add in Camera Raw, is just different because it usually doesn't have any color information. So you don't get like random red or green or blue or pixels in there.
That is very true. Very true.
And did this
in fact, that's one of the
go ahead.
One of the things that draws me to Fuji cameras is I just find that the natural noise that happens, because it's got a different sensor array, rather than it being the standard Bayer, it uses what's known as an X-trans, which is more, it's still a pattern, but it's more randomized than the regular RGB. And it just, when it comes to noise, it's so much more tasteful, I find.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest selling points. Unfortunately, though, it does mean that it's one of the hardest raw files to actually demosaic in software, which is why Fuji files are generally slower to work with. But I must say, the latest Lightroom, and I'm on my new MacBook Pro, it is just rapid. In fact, these images, I'm not even storing them locally anymore. I've got them on my server. So
crazy.
Yeah.
Noise is this audition. Sean, no. First of all, welcome, Sean. Hi, Sean. Yes, we are in Lightroom. No audition. Sorry. You have to wait for that one. And I wanted to ask you the question. When I go out and take photos, scenes often look very different to the naked eye than they do to the camera. Did you find that during the shoot with your camera, I mean, for all these images, that you had difficulties like replicating that same look that you found that you saw with your real eyes, or is this sort of like pretty close to what it actually looked like?
It's pretty close. The trouble is, I've been using a camera for more than half my life now.
Fair.
For 16 years or so. And so it's
sort of like a
these
job.
types of things, you go out with a vision or an image in mind. So when I pull up a camera, I'm like, I know what I want to capture as I do it. That being said, a big telltale sign is when I'm consciously under or overexposing my images. And in this case, I only ever dropped the exposure by like 1/3 of a stop. And that just helps with some of the bright lights to make sure that they're not clipping too bright.
Yeah, it looks like
otherwise,
you need a lot of dynamic range in those photos to not have clipping highlights and just shadows that are pure black.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what I've just done now is I've run out of voice.
That's not great. In the meantime, I can just let everyone know that, by the way, we have about 15 minutes. We are having a stream right now. We're doing a stream right now on the Festive Challenge, which Joe is using to share his view and his perspective on the Festive story and the Festive Challenge. If you haven't heard of that yet, if you don't know what that is, please check out the info tab. I mean the Festive Challenge tab above the chat over on Behance. And if you're not watching on Behance, come on over to be.net/Adobe Live. Once again, that's be.net/Adobe Live. Check out the info. Check out the Festive Challenge tab above the chat and join us. You could win a hoodie and a year of Creative Cloud. No pines or prints, though. Just you know. And Joe, Tony is asking, do you use ND filters or an ND filter for this one and probably for the other ones too?
For video, definitely. Although this particular evening, I actually wasn't. I wasn't using my ND filter because it was dark enough already.
Yeah.
But for photos, very rarely actually. The only time I would ever really want to use an ND filter is if I wanted a massive aperture and still have some sort of motion in my images. But I generally do like my images quite sharp. So it's only if I wanted like blurring people or cars or things like that, but then focusing on a subject. So yeah, generally I don't use an ND filter all that often. In fact, my X100F has an ND filter built in, which is very useful.
Super cool. How did you create those shapes? Quick question.
Yes, so I already had document created. So this is a 4:5 resolution, or aspect ratio rather. And why can I not snap that? And it measures 2700 pixels high. So we're creating this as a digital image. And I did a quick sneaky bit of maths, which in Spotlight, which is just Command Spacebar, type in what you want, maths equation, divide by 4, and it will give you the answer. You can even do Command C, and that will copy the answer to your clipboard. You can go and paste it elsewhere. So if you're coding, that is incredibly useful.
I think some Adobe applications like After Effects or XD, and I think even Photoshop do support some maths in some of the text fields also, if you don't have a Mac computer.
So I've got these images exported. I'm going to drop them all in full res. Just paste them all in place.
Why are you not using the frame feature in Photoshop?
Whoa, when did this happen? As in like InDesign?
Yeah. There it is.
Is that it there?
Yeah. Supports rectangles, circles, and of course you can even create a frame based on any vector or shape layer.
I missed the memo on that. Okay, let's work it out.
This has been a feature since, don't ask me, 2018? 19? like for a while
Nah,
now.
didn't know
2
about
years
that.
ago. Thanks, Tony.
What happens then?
I taught something to Joe. Score. Hang on. Yeah.
What happens if I drop more images than I need, which is what I was
don't
going to do
know.
with my... Yeah, see, no, the frame tool is not the one for this.
It's perfect.
So my reasoning. Perfect. So we've got 4 image placeholders here. Yeah, I think I'm dropping in 7 images because I'm not sure how I want to lay these out.
Fine.
So got those there. Little shortcut to reverse them into the order that they were taken. Fine. And what I'm going to do is let's create a group of these. So, oops, frames, and let's just drop them as clipping masks.
3 years ago, actually. But sorry.
3 years ago. So 2017. Yeah, I was busy.
Yeah.
Right. We drop in some frames. What's the next one?
What?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, huh? Are we? No, network's looking great, encoding's looking great. No frames dropped over here. It's like scaring me. Things you can never say to a videographer or streamer. You're dropping frames. They will stop everything they're doing and check if they're actually dropping frames. All right. Okay. So you're taking these images. I'm actually trying to get on topic. You're taking these images and using clipping masks to only let them, to only show them where the other, like you made shape, you made shapes, rectangles, and now you're using clipping masks, so they are only showing where those shapes are.
And so we have now made a little composition, and my rationale for this is I'm doing an alternating lights, and people as a little bit of a composition. And I have this one as well. And this is where I'm like, which one would work better? So let's drag that down. So I think it's this last image that I'm questioning most. So wouldn't be Photoshop if I didn't use layer comps.
Yeah.
So let's go Festive Story 1A. Okay. Copy that to clipboard. And let's go.
And I have just checked. It doesn't appear that dropping multiple images is a feature for the frame tool in Photoshop. At least not that. That's something the helpx pages mention. So yeah, you can only drag and drop one image.
Where was this one? Nope. This one. So I have an alternating option on this particular image. Yeah, see this one, that already is distracting too much. This now looks like it's a ramen postcard. So I prefer that. Okay, so we can delete that layer, save that, clear those warnings, and maybe we can try and add a little bit of text. So let's just go for some numbers. What year are we? 2021. And let's give this white. Oh, my microphone just dipped out for a second. That was weird.
Why not?
Can I remember the name of that font I used on that book stream that I did a while back? Lust, I believe. That looks about right. Okay, continuity. Let's give it a very slight drop shadow.
And even if you didn't remember,
I'm going to resize this, by the way. This is massive.
Even if you didn't remember that font, you could have just went back to the old stream, take a screenshot, and then just use match font to find it.
Ah, very useful. In fact, the way that I did just do that, if anyone missed it, was I just toggled my Creative Cloud fonts. And I knew it was somewhere in the middle of the alphabet, and it just stood out to me.
Sneaky.
I'm not even sure if I want to use this font, to be honest. Oh, I'm so indecisive this morning. We'll stick with it.
Perhaps we can ask the chat for some ideas. Chat, let us know if you have any favorite fonts that you think would be a great match for this image. And with a bit of luck, we maybe have them installed. Apart from two very obvious fonts that don't even say it in the chat. Don't. It's not happening. So layer comps, I mean, that's something we don't see a lot on stream.
Yes, so I've just added an extra layer, and I'm going to create a composition that remembers all of the layers that are active. Festive Story, this is now 1B, I believe. In fact, no, sorry, this is 2B.
Or not to be.
And if we go back to 1A, turn on this layer, create a new layer comp, 1B, and now I have options. We've got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and with only a few minutes to spare, I would take this and design something a little bit further. I may even add in some sort of blocking in between these frames. Let's see how that looks. So let's do a
And Sandrine is saying the font Elephant is very nice in Adobe fonts. And Oliver, of course, I'm not even going to read this one out. You can all imagine what he said, which font he mentioned. And Tony's even chiming in. Great. Tony's tooting into the same flugelhorn. Thanks, Tony. And Sean is asking about the layer monkey, which of course is a feature, an Easter egg in the layer comps panel. But yeah, I think you have to have your banana tool in the toolbar on the left to be allowed to actually show that. So sorry. I think your microphone actually finally dipped out completely. At least, unless you're just moving your mouth and not saying anything. And that's how you freak out to Joe. But yeah, I can actually not hear you. Sorry. Let's give him a few minutes. In the meantime, while he is trying to figure that out, I will pull up the guide for the flag alphabet and see if we can perhaps communicate that way. Oh, Joe, blink 3 times if you can't hear. No, just kidding. Okay, he's trying to figure that out. In the meantime, don't forget, we have a festive challenge coming up. So if you haven't heard of that yet, here is a slide for you. Take a screenshot of this, or check out the Discord where I also posted this exact same slide. Or you can check out the Festive tab on the Behance page over at, like right above the chat, you can see Festive challenge and mimes now. What else? Yeah, I know.
Is it
oh, I think you. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Aha. There we are.
Well, that was weird.
I mean, if you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. But no need to pretend like you're having microphone issues. Sorry.
Well, actually, I think I may have finally worked out what this was. So, this is my cable tying madness. Underneath my desk is where everything is all stuck and cable tied and everything. I've got a USB hub, and I just nudged it with my knee. I think I actually have slightly disconnected the power on it, and then I nudged it again, and it came back on. But anyway, I've chosen a different audio input, so we're good.
Because that's just the thing Joe can do. Like, I don't have one audio input. I have two. Probably
Okay,
20
so
if I know you. Right.
as we have hit the dot of 1 o'clock,
Yes.
layer comps to files.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, not layer comps to files. Actually, yeah, let's do layer comps to files. So I save this to my export bin, which is a folder that I just always have available.
Mhm.
And then I've created a Photoshop folder so that I know where to look from where I've come from. If I'm going to post this online somewhere, quality 10, I find keeps the visible difference the same, but the file size is significantly smaller. So selected layer comps only, I've selected all of them. Click run. That's going to bash through all of those, edit. And
cool.
now in my export bin, what did I call this? Festive story. You can see I need to tidy this folder up a little bit. Festive story, there they are. And so, boom.
I mean, imagine this being a watch folder for media encoder. You could automatically generate even more images and assets based on this, but that is perhaps something for a different stream.
Yeah, definitely. But there we go. This is my festive story in Soho Ho.
Oh, wow. You know, when you first mentioned Soho, I thought to myself, should I? And then, nah. People have done this joke a lot, so I didn't. But you went there. Anyway.
I'll take one for the team.
Tony says, fantastic. Jackie says, I love the colors with a U, in that top pick. And Oliver says, I occasionally knock my power off with my feet. Well, if the stream suddenly goes down, you know what happened to me. And Oliver says, that's great. And Jackie appears to have joined. Oh, yeah. Didn't see that. Okay, fine. Mine's now. Right. And that is it for today. Joe, thank you so much for showing your brand new photos, which nobody has ever seen before, on stream. And this would be, just so you know, dear chat, this would be a perfectly valid entry into the Festive Challenge, because you can not only create an illustration or perhaps an animation, but photography or even a poster or postcard or a layout is just as good and will totally grant you an entry into the Festive Challenge. And for the one last time, if you don't know what that is, I cannot help you. I've literally mentioned it like 4 times today. So just rewatch the stream and you will know what it's all about. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Joe, I will go back to the big cam. There we are. Any last words before we end the stream?
Just thanks for having me again. And I hope everyone has a great festive celebration. You know, I looked it up, I think it was last year or so. From November until I think it's end of January, globally there's about 140 different festivities and celebrations that happen over this period. So whatever you're celebrating, I hope you enjoy it.
I mean, there has to be one in there that you can submit for the Festive Challenge.
Yeah, join all of them. Get involved.
Right. Have a nice weekend, and I will see you again. Oh, well, probably not me, but someone will see you again on Monday for the next stream, all about the Festive Challenge. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.